slapping AI on a feature set, it's helpful to a point. It may save a few minutes, maybe a few hours over the course of a month or a year, but it's not going to be a game changer in everything that you do. So one Martech capability that enterprises they think about, they talk about, they attempt to act on a lot is pulling together this full picture of their customer. So using all the data that they have across all their channels, all their teams. There's a lot of talk about this. I would say enterprises definitely obsess about this, but in practice, it's rarely accomplished, to the full extent, and certainly to the full strategic value. Yeah, a lot of organizations look at customer data and the Martech stack from the organization's view, but I think looking at it from the customer's view can often help fill in some of the gaps. So organizations internally, they know what they know about their teams and their internal teams and their products, but actually going through and understanding how customers are interfacing with all of their channels from the customer's point of view will definitely help fill in some of those gaps. And then it's a matter of looking at what are causing those gaps, what's actually standing in the way. A lot of times that's internal processes, a lot of times it's siloed teams, sometimes it's a legacy, Martech stacks that don't traditionally talk with one another, aren't necessarily compatible. So taking a look at all those things. But again, I think looking at it kind of from the outside in can provide a fresh perspective on this. Yeah, I think AI can play a few different roles, and I think there's a very tactical role that it can play, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then there is a more strategic role that it can and I think it should play. So the tactical role can be often done in a bit of a disconnected way or a siloed way of, okay, I just need to do my work and my tasks a little bit quicker. So I use Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that to help me write an email, write a blog post, do some what I would say rather tactical things quickly, more efficiently, and it doesn't really have a big impact on anyone outside of either myself or a small team that I work with. So from a tactical level, I think that's where, as anyone who's been following this stuff, every tool out there, every Martech tool has some kind of AI tool interface, Copilot type thing in it. I think these can be helpful in that way, but longer term and to think bigger, the strategic use of AI is where I think it actually fits the best, but it's also the most challenging and the most complex is having AI across, think about it from across an entire customer journey, from across an entire marketing operations flow. So if you think about content production within an enterprise, so it starts with a concept and an idea that was brainstormed, and then that idea gets into, okay, let's create a first draft of something that we can see and read, and then we need to create 10 different variations of it for 10 different channels, and then ultimately we need to serve it to the customers on a variety of platforms, and finally we need to measure it and understand what happened. So all the way across that process, you could use a million different tools, different people using different tools, but I think where AI can play a strong role is in guiding through that entire process and being a through line throughout that process of making sure things are on brand, things are moving from in the right order to the right people, and ultimately being measured for success and creating a feedback loop there. And then if you look at it from the outside view, from a customer view, using AI to better understand what customers are doing, understanding, how long did this customer spend on a website before they decided to call for help, and in what order did they do things, and how often do they log in? What kind of customer are they? Do they have a propensity to, get a mortgage or something like that, or do they have a propensity to churn? And we ultimately lose that customer. So understanding all of those things using AI throughout the entire journey across all the channels, it's the same strategic benefit as using it internally in an operational standpoint. Yeah, I think we are still on the verge of truly realizing the benefits of personalization. I think there's been a lot of investments in personalizing a lot of things, but where I've seen, this is something where, in some cases it's failed, in some cases it's just not truly lived up to its potential and not even close to its potential. And I think a lot of this has to do with people not understanding or not thinking outside of their own roles or not really understanding the capabilities of the tools that they have at their disposal. So I think personalization could be anything from replacing my first name at the beginning of an email to sending me the right offer at the right time on the right channel and at the right place, and being hyper personalized and something that I truly want and value. And to do the latter, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of understanding, a lot of coordination among not only platforms and data, but among people. And I think this is where it gets difficult for a lot of organizations because people are used to working kind of in their channels or in their specific areas and not really talking to each other about what the possibilities of something like personalization might be. The first step to being successful with AI is to have your data house in order as much as it can be. And I'll give the caveat there that I don't think that the data needs to be perfect. Ideally, it would be perfect. AI works better, garbage in, garbage out is said often, and it's true. So the better your data is, the more comprehensive it is, the better. But it doesn't need to be 100% in place, and yet data is the foundation for good AI. I mean, just um, following on the conversation about good personalization, great personalization requires AI to understand. It uses predictive analytics to understand, well, based on what this person did or people like this person, what they did, what are they most likely to do, to want, to need, and things like that. Um, Good personalization uses generative AI to create, very specific, tailored messaging, imagery, videos, all of those types of things for that individual. And ultimately, it uses machine learning and other types of AI to understand, okay, well, what happened and how can we get it to either happen again or do better next time and be more effective. And so there's AI all the way through the customer journey, but that also requires feeding it the right data at the right time across all those channels and understanding who this person is as fully as possible and how we can serve them best. So I think AI ready Martech strategy is really having a good data foundation in place and then layering the right tools on at the right time that are AI enabled. One of the interesting things that I've been a part of was simply enabling more self-serve insights for marketing team members. So basically building out reporting with the idea that instead of this dashboard being embedded or a screenshot being taken and sent in a PowerPoint and just kind of living in slideware, so to speak, actually creating it from the standpoint of we don't know what the end customers are necessarily going to want to ask or learn from this data, but we want to give them the tools that enable them to ask questions, ask meaningful questions, get meaningful answers from that. And so, that involves better understanding of, obviously what the stakeholder needs are and what they're trying to report, but also thinking outside of a very static set of charts and things like that to open up possibilities for people to explore and that are not data scientists. They are marketing analysts and other people that use those martech platforms. They'll use website, email, other mobile app, other tools to market to customers, but now they actually want to see and ask questions that otherwise would take a day, a week, sometimes even longer to ask a data engineer or data scientist to help them to try to figure out what the answers are. We're enabling them to do this on a self-service basis. And I think we're in early stages here as well, but already seeing some amazing results of just the time savings and how quickly someone can determine the success or less than success of an initiative and then make some changes to it. I think the biggest misconception and lie, so to speak, that the vendors tell about AI powered Martech is just that it's going to do more than it's going to extend beyond the product itself and help in greater ways. I mean, I think when AI can span an entire enterprise or an entire customer journey or even an entire marketing team, then that's I think that's a different consideration. But I think every platform out there has AI capabilities, but generally speaking, they're very siloed AI capabilities. And so I think um, there's a misconception that being able to use the AI within that tool is going to somehow extend well beyond it and affect what other tools are doing. But really, they're still just siloed tools. And again, the tools that do extend across many different platforms are going to be and probably are currently, but they're going to be the long-term and most valuable ones. But yeah, just kind of slapping AI on a feature set, it's helpful to a point. It may save a few minutes, maybe a few hours over the course of a month or a year, but it's not going to be a game changer in everything that you do.